I've seen the first 2 episodes so far,
Oh,
and
great.
it's very compelling, very powerful. The message, the political conspiracy, the big drama behind it. But what really stood out for me is that Anna Friel's character, Sergeant Adewale Ballard, she is in a special ops unit, the only female sergeant, and something that a lot of women in military aren't able to actually access or do.
Right.
I think the last film that really kind of highlighted a female in that type of SEAL, is like G.I. Jane. I really like the aspect of Anna Friel's character being not just a mom and a wife, but being this soldier, fighting for her country.
Yeah.
So what drew you to produce this and casting the characters and stuff, because this is a tough character to play.
Sure is.
Very
sure
tough.
is. It's all credit goes to Anna Friel.
I
Honestly,
just love her.
She's amazing.
Fantastic.
She's just fantastic. A wonderful actress. And she knew what she was getting into because we had written a lot of them before we cast anyone. So she knew the kind of ardor the part is going to she would have to endure. But she was a brave soldier, literally.
Yeah.
She trained. She got stronger because when she came to us, she's a small lady. She's 5'2", diminutive. But she. I remember when we were in Morocco, she used to show me her muscles. She was like, "Look at me." She's like, "Oh," I'm like, "Oh, you're awesome."
Roll it up.
But she was really proud of what great shape she got into, and she kept it up the entire time. We had a trainer with her the entire time.
Well,
She's one tough cookie.
Yeah.
Well,
She just is.
She goes through a lot in just the second episode.
Sure
And
does.
she doesn't let up.
It was tough to watch. It was very grueling. So
yeah, it is, and it's we're trying to be as real as possible. We really are. We do a lot of research, and we're trying to present a world that sort of shows all sides. And so as you'll watch the episodes, you're going to meet people, especially in the Muslim world, that will surprise you. And you'll find different perspectives that you've never thought existed there. And on the New York side as well, you're going to find people that you think you're supposed to be able to believe in that you can't believe in. So that's sort of where we're getting our stories from.
Sergeant Ballard, she develops a great relationship with Aslam, even though he is very reluctant because he doesn't want to help her, but at the same time he kind of feels sorry for her because he knows it's not her fault that she's in this situation. So what can you sneak to us about their situation? What I've seen in the last episode, which is episode 2, she's taken and he fights to go with her, which I thought was so powerful. So what can we look forward to seeing?
What you can look forward to is a whole season with the two of them. I'll tell you that.
I mean, honestly, they do get separated, and then they reunite, which is a great thing.
They are the heart and soul of the show.
But they are absolutely, this relationship is the core of our show. And Aslam represents for us sort of the other perspective that's out there. He was a boy who was raised in a very conservative household by a father who was very strict.
He's going to have opinions that are very conservative.
Yeah.
And he's going to judge people around him. So we paint with a very big gray brush. We don't want anybody to be just single-minded.
Right. And so he's going to sort of grow as a character, and she's going to grow as a character too. She's going to see the world a little differently.
And by the way, even the people who are working against her, Adewale Ballard, have reasons why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
So that it's a very complicated world. I think we're just trying to, shine a light on that. Americans are not all good or bad. Muslims are not all good or bad. There's no way that you can look at the world and see anything but gray in the story. That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
So I'm a fan of yours from a long time. Of course, Nurse Jackie, Dr. Cooper, is a very different character from Peter Decker, the fun-loving doctor, and then you come and play this really kind of dark and kind of like a little bit tormented from his disgrace for being a district attorney. So what did you do to prepare for this role? Because it's kind of dark.
Yeah, it's different. Well, I actually studied pre-law in college, so that kind of helped out a little bit.
Oh, that's good.
This character I played is a lot smarter than I am, so there's a lot of speak that I had to kind of look up to make sure I knew what I was talking about at all times. But not unsimilar to when I'm doing doctor speak, but just different. My character speaks a lot in paragraphs because he's very wordy, and so for me, You know, it's difficult sometimes. I have 40 pages of dialogue to go to for the week, you know? And I was like, oh my god, I got so much to memorize this week. But mostly, I mean, I connected with him as a family man, so I understood that. And then really getting to understand the world that he lived in. So I watched a lot of documentaries, on the political climate, and you know, watching Elliot Spitzer documentary. I kind of took a lot from him because I felt like Elliot Spitzer, you know, went up against a lot of giants and didn't back down, and there was a tenaciousness to him as well. So a lot of documentaries, just getting the climate of what the show is dealing with.
Well, there's a scene in the first episode, and I won't spoil it, but something very bad happens, and it's a powerful scene, and we see it in the second episode how your character's dealing with it. In filming that scene, like what were your thought process going through that scene? It's with
Yes,
Gentry.
it's Gentry. Are you talking about the second episode or when I first?
At the very end of the first episode,
Yeah.
that scene where
Yes. What was my thought process when I saw it happen, or what was my thought process when I was
because it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, that, you know, is complete shock and awe when something like that happens, and so thankfully I actually got to see a lot of the playback that they actually used. They had a dummy actually that got hit by the car, and so for that. When you're playing shock and awe, you know, I was reacting off of what was happening, but then in the second episode of what, you know, dealing with it, because then after the shock happens, then it starts to sink in, and then you start to, I think there's a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
You know,
I could
a lot of
see that your
remorse.
character was internalizing it a little bit.
And it was, and I think he took a lot of responsibility for that, and so it kind of hit him hard. You know, it's one of those nights that becomes sleepless easily, because how can you sleep after, you know, something happens to somebody that you are responsible for, you know, and then how do you correct that and make that right? And I think that becomes part of his drive, you know, that when because of that responsibility, it's like, okay, I can't just turn a blind eye to this, you know, even if I want to. There's too much at risk, and people have it's already affected people.
Exactly.
When you knew Nurse Jackie was going to be ending, were you hoping to get on another show this quickly?
You know, I didn't know that Nurse Jackie was ending when I took the show. My seventh, we signed a contract for 7 years, and my seventh year was coming up, and as much as I enjoyed Nurse Jackie, I was kind of itching to do something different. So I asked them, hey, would you mind if I came in and did part of the 7th season and looked to do another show? And they were nice enough to let me go and do that. So I had shot the pilot of Odyssey, and then it had gotten picked up, and then I found out that was the 7th season. So it was kind of perfect timing, actually, because you know, you take a risk. I mean, Odyssey could not have went, and Nurse Jackie could have went another 3 years, and you never know. But it kind of worked out in this case. And what's ironic is that they're both on Sunday nights now. So, you know, Sunday nights I'll be on 9:30 to 10 on Showtime, and then 10 to 11 on Odyssey. And they're such completely different characters. I think it'd be fun to actually tune in and watch Poop, and then switch over to Nurse Jackie and see a character that's so different.
So as far as the role, when you were offered the role and you looked at the script, what was the one thing that stood out to you as to why you wanted to accept this role?
Well, I think that the role actually scared me a little, you know, and I tend to want to do things that scare me, and in a lot of ways. And one, when I got the script, I wasn't sure. I hadn't played a role like that before, so I thought, can I do this? You know, and I'm glad I didn't have to audition, because if I had to audition, I probably wouldn't have gotten it. You know, because I tend to really work hard at forming the characters when I get the role, and sometimes you get a piece of paper and you're like, you have to go and prove that you can play this role with very little information and very little time to prepare that character. So thankfully, Peter Horton met with me, and he said, I'm a big fan, I want you to do this. And I sat down, I took the offer very seriously, and I looked at it and I thought, well, coming off of doing a fantasy movie like Twilight and coming off of a comedy, I wanted to move more towards drama, and this is very heavy dramatic stuff. I wasn't a big political person, so but then I really gravitated towards the conspiracy element, you know, and that was an exciting adventure. When I looked at that, it was the thriller aspect of being a conspiracy thriller, kind of is what really hooked me on it. And then I did all the research of getting into that world, the stuff that I hadn't known before. I hadn't known much about the protesters on Wall Street, and I hadn't known much about that kind of political world. So I had to wrap my head around that and then form that character.
Did you talk to Anna much throughout the production, even though your stories are very separate?
We texted each other once in a while because I always had the directors first, and then they would go over to her unit. So she'd be like, "How was the director?" And I'd be like, "Fantastic." And then once in a while, she'd send me a picture from Morocco, and it actually felt like Odell Ballard was like, on my phone, because she's this mysterious kind of figure that's way off in the distance that So we would text back and forth once in a while, and we would trade war stories because she got beat up a lot on that, and I ended up getting 17 stitches myself. During a scene, I hit my head on a car door. I had to get 17 stitches in my forehead. So we were trading like wound stories. She said, "I got my cornea scratched today." I was like, "I got 17 stitches."
I win.
Yeah.
Were you happy with the end of Coop's story on Nurse Jackie?
Yeah, I think it was very, I love that show, and it was such a tight family, and such a fun character to play, and I feel like he definitely got a good ending for his storyline, which I didn't know. You go into it and you're like, oh, this is the last season, and you're hopeful that you get a good, finale and a good finish. And there's a episode 5 that's called Coop Out, and that's my finale episode, and I hope people enjoyed it as much as I. It was nice. It was a good way to say goodbye to the cast through my character. I got to actually say goodbye to the cast through my character, which was nice.
Well, yeah, I mean, you pretty much felt them up the whole 6-7 seasons.
Yeah.
Coop's nervous tics. That's one of the little quirks about your character that I found so interesting, because it just happens like all of a sudden, like when he got nervous or something, and he would just reach out and grab.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, they used it sparingly, which is kind of nice.
It wasn't overly done.
But as an actor playing it, you get uncomfortable because you're like, I don't want to touch your boob in rehearsals because I don't want you to go home sore.
Yeah.
But it was such a. I mean, that character was so fun to play because he was like a kid in a 40-year-old body. And he had his he just didn't have a filter, so he never meant any harm to anybody. But the things that would come out of his mouth sometimes it's just like socially not.
He had good intentions.
Yeah, he had good
just
intentions.
the delivery wasn't quite there all the
Exactly.
time.
After Breaking Dawn Part 2, when Carlisle died, did you enjoy the fan reaction to that?
I did because there were so many gasps in the audience, and the only thing I was bummed about when I read the script was everybody got to have this battle royale with all these people. I was like, oh man, I don't get to have all that action stuff. So as an actor, it wasn't as fun because I was the first one that was offed, and then all of a sudden everybody has this great action sequence, and I was kind of bummed that I didn't get to do more action stuff. But when I saw the audience reaction, I was like, it was so powerful that I was glad to have it.
Yeah, because that doesn't happen in the book.
Yeah.
Are Twilight fans still prominent with you?
Yes, there were some here today. They're always so supportive, and there's so much love for those books and those movies that I hope it never dies down. I've grown to become fond of fans too, and over the years I've been, oh, you cut your hair, it becomes like a family. You get to know them, So they're familiar faces by now, and I hope that they continue to watch and grow with my career.